Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out-of-this-world story from rSpace. Some people chase their dreams, and some people chase them straight over their marriage. Today on rSpace, 6 years of a real relationship tossed aside because she thought chasing some fantasy online was more important than the person standing right in front of her. The cheating wife toyed with my emotions. I caught her red-handed and ended the relationship. Now she wants me back. My marriage of 6 years finally came to an end after emotional torment and infidelity, and I couldn't be happier. It feels weird to admit it, but the relationship was on the rocks for a while, and I couldn't steer it to safety on my own. I'm 32, an ex-cop. I left the force when I suffered a non-work related back injury and decided to pursue a less physically demanding line of work. I was pretty good at my job, and I have a few ex-cop friends who made a good living as security consultants, so I decided to give it a try. It was rough going at first, but I caught my break when a friend referred a client to me. He was impressed with my service, and word of mouth got me a few more clients. So far, the job has been worth it. It's not exciting, but it's less physical, so there's no risk of me making my back issues worse. My wife, Eileen, 35, works a hybrid role at a local software company. She goes into the office 2 or 3 days a week and works the rest from home. Eileen and I have been married for 6 years. She used to be the sweetest woman. She took care of me during the back injury and supported me while I made the transition to my new career. I used to hold her up as the shining example of what a good wife is supposed to be like. And then one day, she changed. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. I'm trying to look at things as objectively as possible, and I tried to analyze the situation to find out if I was the problem, but I didn't think I was. My new career gave me more time to spend together with her. It was also a lot less stressful on my mental state, so I was able to be more emotionally available when I was around. If anything, I was becoming a better husband over the years, not worse. At the risk of sounding like an old man, I suspected it was her phone. Social media, to be more precise. She started spending hours at a time lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I enjoy a bit of scrolling too, but she was watching worrying stuff. Empty content like dance friends, wannabe celebrities flexing their lifestyles, and relationship advice from 20-year-olds who had probably never been in a real long-term relationship before. It was like sugar for the brain. It felt good, but it was empty calories and just rotted your mind. And I'm sure that's what changed her. It started with simple comments about how we should start a YouTube or TikTok channel together. She said my backstory about being an ex-cop was a good hook for the channel, and that the audience would eat it up. I hated hearing my history and problems being described as if it was merely content. Besides, I didn't like the idea of turning my relationship, the most important part of my life, into a cash grab business idea. There was also the fact that my clients wouldn't take me seriously anymore. I gently turned the ideas down and explained that I wasn't comfortable in the front of a camera. She called me unsupportive and said I was afraid of seeing her succeed. The relationship just went downhill from there. Suddenly, every time I wasn't able to cater to her needs, she would accuse me of not truly caring about her. That was crazy. She would spend hours venting and complaining about everyone at work and whining about every minor inconvenience. Meanwhile, I'd sit and listen to her problems, offering support. If I tried to open up to her about things that were bothering me, she'd give me some variation of, "Why do men think wives are their therapists?" I quickly learned to stop confiding in her. After a while, I realized I wasn't invested in the relationship anymore. Eileen felt like a completely different person from the caring woman I married. She used to bring my meals to me in bed when I was recovering from my injury, and now she threw around terms like weaponized incompetence whenever I made an honest mistake. I knew the marriage was doomed, but the optimist in me still wanted to give it my all. I've never backed down from a challenge, and I know I wouldn't forgive myself if I bailed on our relationship without giving it one final try. So I gave it my all. It's not like I was neglecting her before, but I doubled down on my efforts and really went overboard. I'm talking flowers when I came home, dates at fancy restaurants, and vacations whenever we would go. None of that meant anything to her. She'd still complain about how I never did anything for her, or she'd compare my efforts to something some online celebrity did for his girlfriend. I felt like I was going crazy. How do you make someone happy when they're dead set on finding problems in everything you do? I was fighting a long battle. But then, everything made sense when I started to notice the signs of her affair. She used to watch her phone with the volume up, blaring those grating TikTok sounds throughout the house. But about a month ago, she started spending her time with her phone completely silent, texting and laughing to herself. When I got close to her, I noticed her quickly swipe away from whatever she was doing. It was subtle, just a few flicks of her thumb, but I could catch the changes in her movement. And recently, she started lying to me about leaving the house. She would tell me that she'd spent the whole day working from home, but her car told a different story. It was rarely in the exact same spot that it was when I left in the morning. Sometimes it was a few inches off, and sometimes it was a whole foot or two. It was enough for me to know she'd been driving somewhere during the day. I never confronted her about this. She'd just lie and say I was trying to control her. I guess by that point, I'd just realized that there was no saving our relationship. The only thing left to do was to end it, and I wanted to be sure I had all the information I needed before I did so. I guess that was the law enforcement side of me that wanted to have all of the details. I came up with a two-part plan to figure out where she was going and what she was doing there. First, I went through her phone. By that point, I guessed she was having an affair. I wanted to be wrong about that, but I knew I wasn't. I also realized it wouldn't change anything. Our marriage was too far gone. That part was easy. I got her phone while she was sleeping and immediately started going through all the apps where she could be talking to another man. I found him in her Instagram messages. Like I'd suspected, they'd been talking for a while, but they had only been sleeping together for 2 weeks. I didn't feel anything from finding that out. I was already numb to her antics. There was nothing she could do anymore to hurt me. The second part of my plan was to follow her and catch her in the act. Over the next few days, I would go through her phone when she was asleep to check out their messages and find out if they'd set a date for the next day. One of the perks of my business is that I can move appointments around and determine my own hours. So, 3 days later, when I found them discussing meeting up the next day, I was able to clear my day. I left the house, but I didn't head out to work. Instead, I drove to a bakery and got myself something to eat. I knew I was going to spend a lot of time waiting, and I didn't want to do it in an empty stomach. I didn't need to follow her car. I had records of all their messages. So I had that time that they planned to meet, and even his address from the first time they met up. I just had to wait down the street from his house and watch their coming and going. I didn't have to wait long. I got there about 5 minutes early, and she came right on time. They kissed at the door and then went into the house together for a moment. They came out together and got into his car and then drove off. I got plenty of pictures of every moment with my work camera. From her leaving her car to the moment they drove off together, I didn't have to follow them since I knew where they were going. They discussed getting coffee and a snack before going back to his place. I sat in the car and enjoyed a snack of my own. They didn't take long. They were back in 15 minutes. I took another picture of them coming down together and entering his house. Then I waited again. They took their time and came out 3 hours later. I got another picture of them leaving the house. Her clothes and hair weren't quite as straightened out as they were when she went in. It was pretty obvious what had happened. That was the first time I felt bad about the affair. I'd had my suspicions and I'd already checked out of the marriage, but seeing the physical proof of it was something else. I remembered when Eileen was a woman I used to love and cherish, and now I was watching her walk out of another man's bed. I wasn't really sad, but I had a feeling of loss. It sucked. Now that I had my proof, I had no reason to stay married to her. I'd already started talking to a lawyer about the possibility of divorce. Now I went straight to his office to show him my envelope and let him know that I was ready to file. The next step was the confrontation. I didn't want a screaming match. If she was as done with the relationship as I was, then this should be a quick, easy discussion. Of course, that was too much to ask for. When I walked into the house, she was in the kitchen, grinning at something on her phone. I could guess what. She didn't even notice when I stopped across from her. I told her that we needed to talk, and she almost jumped, surprised to see me there, and she quickly swiped off what she was looking at on her phone. All I said was, "I know. I've known for a while. We're done." She looked stunned, like she was surprised that I found out. Then she glared at me and asked if I was just going to give up like that. I stayed silent to pressure her into talking some more. I wanted to hear her reasoning behind that. She said that in a real relationship, a man was prepared to throw everything away to keep this woman. I wasn't supposed to roll over and give up. I was supposed to scream at her and then go and beat up the other guy. She said she always knew I didn't love her, and this just proved it. She said she had her suspicions ever since I refused to sacrifice my pride for things that she had really wanted in the past. I wanted to laugh. That was the stupidest thing I'd heard in a long time. If she was looking for some stupid macho display of affection, then she had the wrong guy. I wanted to tell her she wasn't worth the gas money, but I reminded myself that I wanted to keep things calm. I just reminded her that I'd already fought for her. I'd been fighting for our marriage all this time, and she was the one killing it. Now she was getting what she wanted. Despite my best efforts to keep things calm, she started to get worked up. When she got to the point of screaming, I pulled out my phone. She asked what I was doing, and I informed her calmly that I was going to record the conversation for my own protection. She screamed that I was trying to make her look crazy, and I said to both her and the camera that I was just documenting the situation for court purposes. I'd witnessed firsthand how messy these situations could become without proper documentation. The camera seemed to calm her down a bit. I think she realized how bad she was going to look in the recording if she continued with her deranged arguments. She just sighed and said that I was wrong. She hadn't given up on the relationship. She still wanted to stay with me, but she just wanted me to learn how to treat her the way she wanted to be treated. I told her that I'd already done what I could to treat her right, and if she wasn't happy with it, that she could have talked to me about it. She'd skipped right over communication and gone to an affair instead. What she said next floored me. She said some influencer on TikTok said that if you have to tell your man how you want to be loved, then he doesn't love you. I almost felt my brain short circuit from how idiotic that was. That was the point when I stopped arguing. I could see there was no point. She was too far gone. She had allowed all that stupid content online to actually rewire her thinking. I thought she was smarter than that, but I was clearly wrong. After I left, I minimized my contact with her. I didn't let her know where I lived, and only texted her to give her my lawyer's number. I told her that all communication had to go through him. That didn't stop her from texting and trying to call, but she cut that out when I kept ignoring her. I didn't talk to her any more than I had to when we were in court, too. I was fine with letting the lawyer do all the talking. I didn't have any feelings for Eileen anymore, so I didn't feel bad when my lawyer tore her apart. He used all the evidence I'd gathered to show how she completely disregarded our marriage. He also used my recording from our confrontation to establish a pattern of playing emotional games with me. He painted a horrible picture of her that swayed the judge in my favor. Eileen is now legally my ex, and it's a bittersweet feeling. I loved her, and losing 6 years of my life hurts. But the woman I was married to at the end wasn't the same woman I married all those years ago. Update. I thought this chapter of my life was closed. I divorced my wife. I came out mostly whole, and I succeeded in cutting her out of my life completely. But Eileen had different plans. In the months after the divorce, I sank myself completely into my work and my hobbies. The hardest thing about the split was having so much time alone. I didn't miss Eileen, but I wasn't used to the silence either. So I spent my time working or in the gym. I started lifting after I recovered from my back injury as a way of strengthening my back. After the divorce, it became a method of meditation for me. About a year after the divorce, I was in a good place. My business was more successful than ever, and I was in the best shape of my life. I'm still single, but that's mostly by choice. I'm not interested in getting into another relationship again right now. Watching Eileen turn into what she became has made it hard for me to consider trusting another person in the long term. But overall, I was happy with my new life. Eileen, however, was not happy with hers. I don't know how she found me. I know from experience that tracking someone down isn't that hard if you have the resources. She could have hired a PI, but I doubt she had the money for that in her current condition. But somehow, she found me. She was waiting at my door, knocking and calling my phone. After my initial surprise, I decided to talk to her. I'm not sure why, but maybe my initial negative feelings from the divorce have finally faded away. I feel like I see her as just another woman now. When I opened the door, she looked nothing like the smug woman I'd last seen in court. She seemed like she hadn't been taking care of herself the same way she did when we were married. She was nervous too, hugging her arms close to her body and not meeting my eyes. I think she was worried about how I would react. She said hey, like we were old friends, and told me I looked good. I couldn't say the same for her, so I didn't. I didn't let her into the house either. We spoke standing in the doorway. She asked how I was doing, and I told her I was great. I didn't return the question. I was curious about what she was doing there, and small talk wasn't going to help her get to the point. She seemed to get the hint and got right to it. She told me about how her life had been after the divorce. She'd moved in with her affair partner, thinking he was the spontaneous type of man that she'd been looking for. He was the type of man who was ready to fight for her. A few months in, she realized she'd made a mistake. He was mean and belittled her at every chance he got. He constantly commented about how nobody else could love her because she was a divorcee, and he was the best chance she had at love. She stuck with him because she'd thrown away her marriage for him, and she felt like it would have been for nothing if she left him. Eventually, when he was done tormenting her, he dumped her and got a younger woman. She started crying while she admitted that she realized she'd made a horrible mistake. She claimed she wasn't in her right mind when she cheated on me, and when we broke up. She wasn't thinking straight, and if she was, she would have realized she already had everything she needed. I asked her if she was suggesting that we get back together. She nodded and said she was, but she understood it took time for me to come around to it. She said she was ready to wait. I laughed and told her that we'd both be dead before I considered taking her back. I told her I'd file for a restraining order if she ever came back, and then shut the door in her face. That was the last time I saw her. I don't know if her life has picked up or if she's found a new boyfriend. For all I know, She could have crawled back to her affair partner after I turned her away. I wouldn't put it past her. Moving on from a long-term marriage will always be tough. It's like you're losing a part of yourself. But staying with a partner who doesn't respect you and cheats on you is no way to live. You owe yourself better. If you're miserable in your marriage and there's no hope of fixing it, then take the first difficult step to freedom. The storm is rough, but I promise there are clear skies on the other side. She kept gaslighting you the whole time, accusing you of not loving her, making her happiness your job, all while sneaking around. Meanwhile, she was scrolling TikTok for hours, living vicariously through teenagers and influencers, trying to chase some fake version of excitement and youth she clearly thought she'd lost. And after all that, she had the nerve to show up later like she could just slide back in? Please. Some people seriously act like the world revolves around them. She lost a good thing, plain and simple. And you? You get to move on, clear-headed and way better off. What's the wildest way you've seen someone destroy a perfectly good relationship, chasing some online fantasy or idea for themselves? Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.